Okay. All right, guys, welcome aboard. So it's Tim and Mike. We're hanging out at the shop, and we're taking a little bit of time to show you some styling stuff. I have been working with you guys on the store that is built in Angular, and we brought in Mike to show you how to make it look a little bit better, because right now it's pretty functional, but it doesn't, it's not going to win any beauty prizes as it is right now. It's pretty much completely unstyled. So let's take a quick look at what we've been working on here. We've got our login area. On the left, we have this account area, and we have this store over on the right. And this is basically being fed entirely through Firebase right now. So what we're actually going to be shooting for, I can show you real quick here. And Mike, would you like to give us a little intro of how you've done this here?
So I forked the exact same pen that you guys have been working from, and took a bit of time to style it up and write a lot of CSS and whatnot. So this is what I've come up with, and I was pretty impressed when I first took a look at what you guys have been working on. Like, this is a great little Angular application. Really showcases that your ability to use Angular, and that's pretty impressive, because Angular is pretty new technology. Not everyone knows it, so it's a good skill to have, and more shops are starting to bring it in. So
it's the hotness.
It's the hot new thing right now. But it's a good one as well. It's a solid library and very, very practical. So it's great that you guys have some knowledge and you're able to use it. But we gotta be able to build on the front end, because this is the web after all. We gotta make it look nice, look slick, be readable. And then, so that's what we're going to learn today, is a bit of some styling, picking colors, and how to lay things out on the web page. There's some design standards to use on the web nowadays, and writing a lot of CSS by hand as well to actually, take your functional app and make it look good.
Yeah. So you'll be surprised how quickly we'll be able to do something like this, guys. One of the tools we're going to be using is a little bit newer, which is called the Flexbox. I gave you a very brief introduction to it previously. And Mike, I believe you've used the Flexbox fairly extensively in the example here.
There's a lot of flex properties going on. So if you want to take a quick demo here, Tim, and add some money to the account, we can just show them how things
grow. You got
grow.
some nice text fields there too. That looks good. $10,000.
$10,000.
Bob
rich,
is balling out.
Right.
Oh, I see what you mean. Yeah. So then we can do some purchases.
Stuff. And if you look at the bottom of the page there, the boxes are now growing when we add new purchases to the purchase history. The other box on the other side of it grows with it. So
right. So I have a simplified demo of the problem that is being solved here, because this is one of the big problems of CSS, one of the things that makes people pull their hair out when they first start working in it. And this is something I show in the 4th module a little bit more when we get into the actual Angular material libraries. But right here, guys, if you're checking out this top section that we have 4 boxes, and the 4th box here has grown taller, but there's no easy way to make the other 3 boxes match it. In other words, they don't know how tall box 4 has gotten. So as more text gets in there, and especially if there's dynamic text fields in there, this will just get more and more out of alignment and more ugly. And the way we used to have to do this in the past was using floats, basically. So these boxes have been lined up by each of them being given a float property, which has a second problem as well. When that height information gets discarded inside the CSS, if we don't have, for instance, this little thing we call the clear fix, watch what happens if I take it away here, guys. Boom. So it gets terribly messed up, because the height information is discarded. The border that was around the whole thing collapses. It's basically 0 pixels tall at this point. So the only thing we're seeing is the border. So what we have to do to fix that is this little trick called a clear fix, which essentially sticks in a small little invisible piece of content and clears the float property off of it, which is something we really shouldn't have to do, but it's the only way that exists to solve this problem up until now. In the second example here, we're using the flex properties. And if you take a look at box 4 here, we can jump into it and we can add, a couple more paragraphs in here. And you'll see that as it grows taller, there's another. I'm in the wrong one. Hold on, let me go to the Flexbox. I mean, that was getting worse and worse in the float version. So, but in the Flex one, see that? See how it's getting taller, guys? But all the boxes are getting taller at one time. And we've got a couple other nice little properties we're using from the Flexbox here. Including the space around property that just spaces them out nicely within their container. So Mike is going to be showing how we can use this in a practical way to make our stores look nicer and to make everything stay nice and responsive and nicely aligned. That's the plan. Am I correct?
Yeah, you
All right.
are indeed.
Very good. All right, let's get into it, guys. Okay guys, so here we are in the store that we've been working on, and I'm going to turn it over to Mike. He's going to get us started with doing a little bit nicer styles here.
Yeah, so right off the bat, we're just going to do some CSS styling just to make our web page look a little bit nicer right straight away. So before we even get into the layout and dividing up the web page. So first thing we're going to do is bring in a new font that will be a little bit nicer than the old default Times New Roman font that the browser gives us. So
the one blessed by Microsoft.
Yeah.
Back in the day.
Yeah. So we're gonna pick a font actually blessed by Google, because that's where we're going to be grabbing our font from, is from Google Fonts. Which
our new masters.
Yeah, new masters now. So in case you guys don't know, there's this thing called Google Fonts out there, which is a huge online font repository full of free, copyright-free fonts. And really, they're super easy to bring into your web page, and now you actually have a much larger selection of fonts to choose from, all for free. So let's do that. So we're on the page over here, and we're going to pick Roboto, which is Google's main font. Pretty nice font as well, and it's part of the material design guidelines, which are the kind of design guidelines for designing for the web and mobile. So we're going to take a couple different versions of the font within the same font family here. Mm-hmm. So we're going to take the Light 300, which is light. It's like one of the lighter ones, and the 300 means the font's weight, and you declare that with CSS. So Light 300, we'll keep the normal 400. Okay. That's like your body text. We'll take the medium 500. And then the bold 700. So,
bold 700.
If we need them, now we have a couple different ones to pick from. And as you can see, there's a little barometer over there, and that's basically saying, telling you how many fonts you're importing to your web page. Because we are grabbing these from an external source, so there is a bit of downloading or a bit of data that has to be transferred. So you want to keep it reasonable. So we are still in the green, so that's good for us. But that's just a little indicator of that. So if you want to scroll down now. Google just gives you a nice little code snippet to bring into your web page, and then that's it. You've got a custom font basically. So you can do it with a link tag like you would a style sheet, but I prefer to bring it in with the CSS. So we're going to use the @import property, which is just a CSS rule.
Second tab here.
Yeah.
Yep.
Second tab. So let's just copy and paste that beast, and
so you guys can see in there the weights that we asked for are all appended to the back there. So that's how it makes sure that we're getting everything we need here.
Exactly,
so
yeah.
We're going to grab that and jump back into here.
So let's
Where should we throw this, Mike?
Yeah, anywhere's fine.
Cool!
Any imports, you want to place them at the very top of your style sheet. That's just protocol for that, and technically there's no rules against it, but... don't want to piss off your team.
Yeah, then, if you want to be unpopular, then start throwing your fonts anywhere. But wait a minute, I put it in there, Mike, and I don't see any change.
Yeah, exactly.
Nothing's happened.
I guess
it's broken.
Yeah.
Google's broken.
Yeah.
Bing rejoices.
Yeah, Bing rejoices. The first and only time. So we've imported it, but we actually haven't declared it. Yeah, so we're just going to declare it in the body, so basically it's going to apply to anywhere we write on this web page, and let's specify it otherwise, so we can just declare it once and be done with it, opposed to saying, put it in the buttons, put it in the H tag. Let's just declare it once. Let's put it in the body tag, so let's write font family, and then in quotations, Roboto, and look at that, boom, it's changed.
Ah, very nice.
And then we also just want to put a fallback font, just in case someone's system has trouble getting it. Let's put a sans serif fallback font in there. So now we have a much nicer font on our webpage. That's a great start. And then
it looks so crisp, eh?
It does look crisp, but it could be a little crisper.
Could it, mate?
Yeah, it could. With a little thing called Webkit font smoothing. This is just a little CSS trick here. It's actually just going to make Anti-Alias.
Yeah, so this is more of a browser trick, guys, than the font trick. Essentially, different browsers render fonts slightly different ways, and Webkit has an option that you can turn on anti-aliasing.
Yeah.
So what that does, if you look very carefully at the rounded corners, especially like maybe the M in money, then you're going to see the rounded corners be a little less crunchy, I believe is the term.
That some people use, yeah. So it's just this, just an extra thing to throw in there. And then what we're going to do actually is we're just going to give this a bit of a smoother color to look at, because right now this is just an absolute white. So let's give it like an off-white or a soft gray as the overall background color, because you often don't want to be using a pure white. So
yeah,
let's give it a, I like a lot of off-whites, but for this app we're going to pick a bit of a light gray here. So already that's a little easier on the eye. Like a pure white, especially for like a whole background, is very harsh on the eye. So
yeah, definitely.
Yeah. So
for like a small area, maybe like an input field, it might be okay, but you generally don't want to fill your whole screen with all white.
Yeah. So that's just the first couple styles right off the bat, just to get a web page looking nicer. And now we're actually going to start carving up the web page and dividing it in a couple of sections using the Flexbox.
Yeah, sounds good.
Okay, so here we are back in the web page. Now we're going to start laying out the web page. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to put a div in here that basically holds all the content on the web page beneath the login bar. So basically like anything.
So this whole chunk,
yeah,
basically all this stuff.
The account in the store. Because basically, we want to basically divide this into two sections. The left and the right, account on one side, store on the other. So first thing we got to put them within a div that will have a flex property on it, and we'll get into that. So right above this section ID account, let's put a div. Let's give it a class, something called wrapper, that implies that it's wrapping basically everything. And let's close that. Let's make sure we close up that one. So I believe it should be here.
Right after the store. There we go. Yeah.
And yeah. And we're putting the label in here because it can get quite complicated, when you have so many divs. So this is a nice little trick, is just to actually label your div. So wrapper, and now we know where that begins and ends.
Yeah, that can save your butt.
Yeah, it can get quite messy, so I definitely recommend doing that, guys. So now back in our CSS, underneath the body, we're going to now apply some CSS attributes to that wrapper class. So the first thing we're going to do is give it a width of 90%. That way it's not taking up the entirety of the page, and we can have a little bit of empty space on either side. But in order to do that, we need to centralize it. So this is a CSS trick to align things horizontally centrally. So you go 0 auto, which basically just tells it put 0 margin on the top or bottom, and then auto declare it on the left and right. So
cool.
This is an easy way to centralize things, center align things. What else do we want to do with this? We want to so this is the first time we're going to use the Flexbox here. So display flex, so no more display inline block or block, new property. It's 2016, let's get modern. Let's get flex. Display flex. And then we're going to give the flex a direction. Now this is the default one, but let's declare it anyway, so there is no misconception. Flex direction row, which basically means
You totally rhymed right there. You did. That was awesome.
Nice. Basically means with flex direction row, basically says all the children, the direct children of that div,
Yes.
are now going to be aligned horizontally. So next to each other like that, like a row. Opposed to if you'd said flex direction column, then they would all go vertically, so go one beneath each other. So that's the difference between row and column. So,
yes. Now the key point that Mike mentioned there was that it is only the direct children of the container that you applied the flex to. So for instance, we've got a section, we've got a div, those have other things inside of them. Those inner children, they don't get the flex properties. But that's a good thing, right? Because we don't necessarily want to apply it to every single one of our purchase items here. We just want to apply it to that whole chunk so that we can get them side by side and using the flex properties to stay in alignment and be nice and responsive.
Yeah. And we'll see more about how that works as we go, but let's just explain row, horizontal, column, vertical, to the direct children.
Yeah, that's a really good starting point.
Yeah. Okay, so back to it. So that hasn't changed a lot, but we will be able to tell what that's done very shortly. So basically, that's just said put the account and the store next to each other in a row, and because they're in the same row, they're going to share the same height. So that's how we had that it growing to match the height on either side, and we will see that work as we go. So next thing we're going to do now is we're going to put the account in the store into a section tag each, and we're actually going to turn the nav, the login bar, into a nav, because right now it's a section with an ID of login up at the top of the HTML page here. As you can see, it's section ID login. So let's turn that into a nav and do the same with the closing tag here. That's just a HTML5 semantic. That way we just know it's exclusively a navigation bar.
Right.
And that way now we can actually just have a little more freedom with our section tag. So account is already a section, but I believe that the store, where is the beast?
Right
div
under
class.
purchase.
Yeah, right underneath. Yeah. Right now it's a div class store. So let's actually change that into a section. So now we have two sections basically, which is how we like to organize this web page.
Yeah, a div is not really a very descriptive thing, right?
No.
We always used to use them prior to HTML5, but with HTML5, they said, let's what does that tell you, div? It tells you nothing. Let's name it for what it is. So a section is pretty much what it sounds like. It's for the big area of a page. Now, inside of a section, you're going to use divs quite a bit, but it's going to be for small details inside of your larger sections.
Exactly right. So, and now we can actually declare things, with a little more specificity opposed to having a bunch of divs. So we're going to see that in play right now. So let's now go back into our CSS and apply some styling on those sections.
This is where it gets crazy.
Yeah. So we're going to use our old friend display flex again. But this time the flex direction, see, it's already messed up now. What's going on?
Yeah, what's going on?
Flex direction, column. Typo, guys.
Yeah.
There we go.
There
Back
we
to
go.
it. So
There
what was
we go.
happening there was because it didn't. The default direction is row. It was putting everything right next to each other horizontally, but we want to keep things vertical, similar to how it was before. But now we can space it out with a little more, to our liking. And now we're just going to put one more flex property in, flex 1. So this basically tells it how much to distribute the space. So we'll give it a background color of red so we can show it again. So right now flex 1, so it's a 1-to-1 ratio saying share the space equally, guys. But without that, let's take a quick look here. Store just takes up as much space as it needs.
Right.
So put that back in, flex 1. So now they're basically taking up 50% of the space each. So if there was three sections in that row, they'd take up 33% of the section each. So you don't actually have to declare any width here. We haven't told it what width to take. We haven't told a pixel or percentage value, or even a viewport value. We've just share the space equally. So
right.
very
Much better
way.
responsively.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. We want to stay away from any hard pixel values whenever we can.
Yeah.
I mean, you'll still use your hard pixels for small things, like maybe positioning an icon or something like that. But in our sections, we almost never are going to want to use a hard pixel value anymore.
Yeah. So the last thing we're going to do for this little bit here is now do a little work on the navigation bar. So let's go. I see we have a section in our CSS called the ID for login.
Yes. Where did I see that?
I just cut it out. I'm going to put it. Let's put the CSS in the order that we wrote it. That's a way to keep it organized. Mm-hmm. So we actually don't need that ID anymore because we've given it a unique HTML element nav. So let's just change that to nav. Nothing's changed because it knows. And I see you did already introduce them a little bit to Flexbox here because it does have display flex on it.
That was a quickie fix we did in there.
Mm-hmm. Because you got this handy little thing called align items here. Now let me just delete that for a second. What?
There you go.
Things at the top, they're at the bottom.
Yeah.
I thought it was nice and aligned.
Yep. I love being able to do that.
Yeah.
Like alignment, like center alignment on the vertical axis is something that has always been a huge problem in CSS. It isn't easy to do. And the reason why is because pages basically grow vertically. This is the way the web was designed. So as a result, it's very hard to say exactly how tall a page is. Mm-hmm. So you have nothing to really align something, vertically in the center. So you could do it horizontally without too much difficulty. We did it with our little margin trick, but there's no corresponding trick to align things vertically. It seems like it should be so easy and it's so hard. But now along comes the Flexbox and it's one property.
Yeah. It certainly was not like that back in the day.
And we rejoice.
All sorts of weird hacks and workarounds. So this is great stuff and it's making life a lot easier for web developers. So
much more enjoyable.
Yeah. So let's actually apply a few more styles to this navigation as well. I've taken off the border because these borders are not looking nice to anyone. So
what's wrong with them?
We want solid colors, guys.
Oh
smooth,
man, no reds,
flat colors,
no green. Killing Christmas.
So let's give it a background color, and I'm going to give it a nice shade of blue. And we're actually going to get a little bit more into colors and color selection just a little bit later. But let's take a look at that nice crisp blue there.
That is nice.
Mm-hmm. And what else do we want?
So long as we keep my green border.
For a few more minutes at least. So we also want to do make our layout consistent. So let's give this a width of 90%, like the content below it. Mm-hmm. But we actually still want our navigation to take up the full width of the page. We want the content inside to align with the content below. So actually what I'm going to now do is give it a padding of 5% on either side. That's giving it a padding of 5% all round. So let's stick a 0 on the front. That said, no padding on the top or bottom, but 5% on either side.
Got it.
Now, as you can see, though, we do have
a little gap.
Yeah, we've got this gutter here, basically.
Mm-hmm. And on the top.
Yeah, and on the other
thin one.
Yeah. And what that is, that's nothing to do with the nav bar, though. That's the body itself getting the margin applied to it by no one else but the browser itself. So let's go back up to the top of our CSS.
Okay.
And just underneath the import thing, the first CSS that you often write is this little reset trick here, where you just use the asterisk, and then you can write something which basically just resets it on the entire page.
Right.
Because a lot of browsers actually apply their own styling, with the Times New Roman font. That was declared by the browser. So the browser actually says, oh, let me give you a little bit of margin in the corners there. Well, we don't want it. We don't want it,
it's different per browser, too. Like, it's not
not
consistent.
No. But if we just go margin 0, that gets rid of it. But it gets rid of a lot of default margins. So you do have to be aware of what you're doing there. So we're gonna have to declare a lot of our own margins now.
Yeah, you can see the text has tightened up quite a bit because typically the browser wants to apply some margin around H1 tags and so forth. Yeah.
Yeah, so we've lost a lot of space there, but that's okay because now that's something we can declare ourselves, or you can actually give a quick Google and Google CSS reset, and there are a little more nuanced ones, but just plain and simple margin 0, and then you can declare it yourself. So
yeah, that'll do the job for what we're doing here.
Exactly. So as you can look, we've already started to clean up our web page a bit.
It's looking a lot better.
Yeah. So let's keep building on it, but let's do it.
Well, quick summary. So let's take stock of where we're at here. So what do we do first? We brought in a custom font.
Yeah, custom font.
And we got that from the Google font repository where we selected the ones that we want.
Yeah.
We brought it in with the CSS method using the @import. Then we've done a margin reset just to remove all of the extra spacing that the browser wants to apply around things.
Yeah.
We have used the Flexbox in 2 places. So what we've actually got is a row-based Flexbox inside a column-based Flexbox, if I'm understanding right.
Yeah.
Does that sound right?
No, it's the opposite way. So the column is inside of a row. So you have a row, one row, and that has 2 things in it. The account in the store.
Yeah.
So that's just a row of 2 things.
Yeah.
And then inside those rows, inside each one of those 2 sections is another flex with a column.
Got it.
One row, 2 columns.
Right. So if we're thinking ahead to what's coming up,
yeah, you're thinking ahead there, Thomas.
quick look at what we're going to be jumping into here. We can see we've got some nice blocking going on here. So you're planning ahead for that with your Flexbox.
Yeah.
Smart, smart. All right, cool.
Yeah.
So what else have we done here, Mike? We've set basic background style.
Yeah. We've centered our content. We've given everything that has a margin of 5% on either side.
Yeah.
And
so we're in a pretty good position right now.
Yeah.
Cool.
But still more to go.
Okay. Sounds good, man.
Yeah.
Okay, guys, so we're back for the next section that we're going to do, and what Mike is going to take us through is how to do a little bit of blocking, some hierarchy inside of our page here for a little bit better composition, but keeping the responsive elements.
It's all about responsive, but it's all about readability, right? And establishing a hierarchy. Because right now, there's just so much content. We got account is overdue, we got input fields, we got purchase history. It's I don't know what to make of anything.
It just kind of barfed onto the page. Yeah.
And it's impressive that the stuff all works, but let's make it easier for the user to use it and show how well it works. So,
exactly. They'll never get to it if they look at it as it is right now.
Yeah.
So poor Bob.
Poor Bob, So what we're going to do is we're going to break up that account side into 3 sections, and what it's going to be, how much money is in the account, a section where you can input money, and then there's purchase history. So 3 sections, and we're going to get them, we'll break them into 3 divs, and we're going to apply a class called card on each of those divs, and then we'll get into the styling on that. So right in here, account section ID, see we have an empty div here, so let's use it. So we'll go div equals class, div equals card, sorry, and then I want that to close right after your account is overdue.
Okay.
So I'm going to now put a closing div tag in a label. Of course, always a label. Card.
Yes.
For
the record, I knew Mike was going to do this, so.
So that's why you didn't do it yourself, though,
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right.
No, it's something that we all say we do, but we don't all do it.
Not always, no.
No,
but I really encourage it when you're getting started, for sure.
Mm-hmm. It trips me up even on the times where I don't do it. I often get, HTML can be an eyesore. Really, the key to writing good HTML, because HTML is basically just placing the things on the web page. A lot of the complexity comes in CSS and JavaScript. So the key to writing good HTML is organization.
Yes.
And a way to do that is just label your divs, right? And also using things like nav, like section.
Yes.
So it's a little bit more. And also, be lazy and use CodePen's tidy button.
The tidy button.
Let's use it right now.
I'm gonna do it.
Yeah.
Tidy button. You feel like a superhero when you click that thing, right?
Yeah.
Ah, that's much nicer.
And
Now, one thing I'll point out while Mike is doing this, guys, that is kind of an additional benefit of doing things with Angular. You'll notice we've been able to change up our IDs, change up our classes for the sake of styling, but it hasn't broken the JavaScript, right? Now, typically, we'd have to be very, very careful doing this type of styling because in our JavaScript, we'd have things like, get element by ID or get elements by class. And as soon as we change that ID, change that class name, suddenly our JavaScript breaks. But the way Angular does it, we don't really do DOM selectors. We do everything with directives and custom directives. And those are not vulnerable to the kind of changes that we're making here. So we can go ahead and style, we can make it look nice, we can try a couple of different treatments. We don't have to really worry so much about the JavaScript breaking with what we're doing here.
Yeah, it breaks the logic of the JavaScript so much less, which is just great for experimentation and working on the front end. So
it's a big benefit.
Yeah, big benefit of Angular in that regard. So, and just how you structure your, your data. So, broken them up into 3 sections. Now let's go in and write the CSS for the card class so we can actually see what we've done there. So let's go back in our CSS underneath the nav. Let's write our CSS in order. Write a new thing. Start class, and now let's give it a background, a white background, because we just want a nice white card, and we'll get into what cards are in just a moment. So it looks like it's still one section. That's because we haven't actually applied any margins, so they're all touching each other. Once we go margin, say 15 pixels. So it looks like they're still being treated like they're in one big div. That's probably because our HTML is still probably a little bit off.
Let's check it out.
Yeah, it is. So we got one too many div cards, guys. So I'm just going to come in here and take a look.
Oh, right here, Mike.
Yeah.
I think we don't have a closing here, do we? Because that is closing that ng show right there. So we might be missing a closing. Did I get it right?
There we go. That was the one.
Nailed it.
Tim is with the rescue.
I get a lot of debugging practice.
Yeah. Exactly, guys. So as we were saying, it's so easy for HTML and divs to get mixed up. So let's do our best to avoid it. So we can tell that's 3 sections, but the text is really tight. Everything is right up against the border. So let's now apply the padding. Let's say nice simple 15 pixels.
Yeah, that's much nicer.
That's a lot nicer, yeah. So already we're looking.
We've got 3 discrete sections.
Yeah.
So it's not so much that you're trying to take in all at one time as your eye goes down the page.
Really, it's all about establishing. That was my thing. When I came in, I looked at this, and we get this all the time when we get given a project brief by a client, is really assessing the needs. And so when I came in this, you guys have been working on this whole semester, I came and looked at it, and right away I just figured, like, what's the key information and what are the differences? So for me it was intro, saying, hi Bob, here's how much money you have in your account. And then a section where you input money is a completely different section. It's an input, it's an action you're asking of the user.
Right.
That should be done elsewhere, especially if it was a real e-commerce app, should be, handling finances elsewhere. And then purchase history, and you have it with a filter search. That's another section. So, break it up.
Tertiary information, really. Yeah.
Really.
The main thing is like, how much money I got?
Yeah.
Oh, I'm overdue? Let me put some in.
Yeah.
What I spend this money on? That's the order your brain would go in, basically. Yeah. I expect Bob's like me.
Yeah. So that's how we've broken that up. So now, as you can see, so we're basically creating something called a card here. And this is a very, very popular thing in material design, and not yet, though, Timus, and very popular thing in material design. It was established by Google, but you really see this all over the web now because everyone's taken note from it. Basically, a card is just a little section where you give information, and usually they're white, but not always. And last thing that they have is a shadow underneath them. So as I've seen, I've given that CSS class called box shadow, and I've just given it a few bit of pixel information to say how thick it is and on what side it should be on. And then I've given it a color value, in this case an RGBA, so it's actually got a bit of opacity to it. So it's just a really light black. And as you can see,
makes a huge difference.
Yeah. So what that's supposed to do is make it look like it's kind of resting on top of the surface it's on. That's why it's a drop shadow, right? Because it's slightly elevated.
Right.
And let's go take a look at some of the, what is a card and what is the shadow? What's the importance of it? So this is a huge driving factor between material design and really modern web design. Is this sense of paper and elevation and establishing visual hierarchy through elevation or a Z depth, right? So as you can see in between on those two ones, a slightly lesser shadow on the left side to imply that's like the first state of depth, a resting state, and then a elevated state, a raised state on the left there with an even thicker shadow. So we know that
the other left.
Sorry, on the right, yeah. On the right. And that's to show that one would have more importance now because it's even higher up. That's placed on top of the other one. So the reason we applied a thin shadow is because that's the first element we've placed on top of the body, really. So
nice example down here, Mike, where they've, this is a very typical situation that could get messy really quickly, where we have these little rollover type of menus here that opens a menu, and when you roll over, opens another one. So it's done a nice job of using that Z depth to stack them in the order that you have selected them. So for your brain, it's very easy for you to follow it back, the order that you did things in. It's really smart the way they've done it. Basically, all of this is possible now because of CSS 3.
Yeah.
Before that, doing drop shadows was just a real task. So as soon as this become available, it's really interesting to see the way that it has changed design. And now it's not just a nice touch. It's not just a little styling thing anymore. It's actually indicating hierarchy. It's indicating the intended use for things.
Yeah.
It's pretty cool to see.
And now that you guys have been aware of this, take a look at it next time you're on the web. All of Google stuff uses it. YouTube uses it. Even Facebook uses it. Basecamp uses it. Like, keep an eye out for it now, and you will notice this is everywhere on the web. This is the way that the design is going, because it really works with responsive as well. So
the new convention, basically.
Yeah.
So lovely, and we're doing it.
So let's just jump back into the CSS then. Let's just take a look a little bit at that box shadow property one last time.
Yeah.
And that's basically we're just basically just declaring. With us saying, give it a shadow, give it only on two sides, really, because that's the direction of light, and.
So for instance, here we've got 3 pixels, and here we've got 2 pixels. So between the two of those, we can indicate the direction of the light, because one is going to spread out 1 pixel further, which, gives the indication that the light is stronger on the other side than it is on this side, if that makes sense. What I'm driving to here is it should be pretty consistent.
Yeah, it's consistent.
So even if we spread that shadow further to indicate, that this is raised up closer to us, the direction should still be the same. So the ratio between these numbers needs to stay the same, even if the spread gets wider.
Exactly, yeah. And the thing about this box shadow property is it is really customizable, so you can experiment with it. I suggest doing a little more research, but also I didn't write this by hand. I got this from a material design card demo. So there's a lot of them out there. So if you want to establish it, there are set values for it. So you can just do a Google, material design box shadow or something like that, and you will get it for all the different Z depths in the thickness of the shadow. So.
Or go to Oddly Timbot on CodePen. I've got them.
Yeah, I hear that's pretty good CodePen accounts. So
no daily picks yet. Just saying, CodePen. If you're watching.
Yeah, you've ever been on the front page now, Tim?
No.
Oh, interesting.
Can't say I have yet. It's not like I'm a 3-time daily pick winner.
Yeah.
Like anybody else
on this broadcast.
doing this tutorial. Listen, CodePen, you gotta help me out. I'm dying over here.
So let's actually do a last, let's now apply the card on the other side there. But before I do that, I'm going to go back in CSS and I'm going to delete the pre-written styles for the accounts. So scroll down there. Because we don't need any of these anymore. We don't need a float left. We don't need a width 50%.
Yeah, there are no floats in here anymore.
Or any width being declared, besides the 90% stuff.
Right.
And we certainly don't need that green border, am I right, guys? Okay, so now let's do the same back in our HTML. Let's go up to the store section. So
Alrighty.
section store, and then let's actually give it a, I believe the best way to do this is to give it a section class. Section class card, just to help us break things up. That will come a little more apparent later on, I believe. And we'll apply that, close that down.
There we go.
And if we go to the bottom, we can see that they are aligned. They share the same height because they're in a flex row.
Yeah. You know, so 2 things to think about here, guys. So first, the flex property, straight up flex property where we set it to 1. Because it's the same on the left as well as on the right, you know, we get this nice 50% on either one of them here without having to do any percentages and certainly not any hard pixel values. So that solves our problem where, you know, as soon as we put the card in here, if we didn't have that flex property, it would be very skinny, it would be chopped, basically, which would look terrible. Now, the second thing that the Flexbox is doing for us is because of the align items property that we're using, this is, or sorry, the align items. The store is going to grow to the same height as the left-hand column here, which is really important because in the left-hand column, we don't really know how long it's going to be. If we add more purchases in here, this is going to get taller, and we don't want to get it getting out of alignment with the store on the right here. So Flexbox is solving a big problem for us. Yeah, see that? Oh man, that would be bogus, right?
So that's actually been declared with the Flex1 property because it's sharing the width.
Flex1.
Yeah. So, yeah, that's how we've got a basic layout of our page going. And now, next step, what we have to do is now apply some more flex and some more layout on the store side.
Yeah, sounds good, man.
Yeah.
Let's do it. Okay, guys, so we're back. So we've made really good progress here so far. Our store is already looking pretty good, pretty usable. We've kind of carved up the page using the Flexbox and what I like to call like the broad strokes.
Yeah.
I'm not sure that's the right term to use, but basically we've got our sections in there. But we mentioned that inside of the sections, it's okay to use divs when we get into the smaller details. And so I think, Mike, we're probably ready to get into some of the smaller details, maybe inside of the store area there.
Yeah, so now we're gonna start using some layout properties on just a specific section of the page, the store and each item in the store. But we're also going to be using display flex, so it shows it can be used to organize the entire page and also the small little components of the page. That's like how handy of a property it is. And
cool. Why don't we take a quick look at what we're doing next here? Let's
so
take a look at the easy
results.
baked version here.
So as you can see on the store side there, you know, we have an image, we have some text, and we have a button. And you know, if you want to play around with the responsiveness a bit, you can see that.
Ooh la la!
Right off the bat, it's crazy.
There you go.
Yeah, no,
so that's about phone size, right?
Yeah, that's
there.
For mobile. So that's how it would look on the mobile.
Yeah,
and,
nice.
You know, but then even still, if you just want to,
here, let's try and break it.
Can't be done.
Nope, can't be broken. Nice. Pops in and out there. Nothing busting out of its boxes.
Yeah.
That's beautiful.
You can just keep going, that way you can see like the space around it. That's a flex property, so that just says, you know, stick me in the middle, align us here, and make up the space yourself. So real handy. So let's do it.
All right, man.
Back over in our guy here. So first step we want to do is we want to apply some styles on each individual item in the store. So, and they're all being generated. So actually, up in HTML here on the ng repeat. So you guys know all about that. You guys are Angular pros. So, but that's the item.
We're ng repeat pros.
That's the item that we want to stylize. So let's actually put a class on that item, on that ng repeat div. And we'll call it store repeat. So we know it's the part of the store that's being repeated. Back into our CSS now. Let's go section repeat. And the first thing we'll do to help us identify where each section begins and ends is we'll give it a border.
Hold on there, Mike. You're under the sections? Oh, here we go. Section repeat. Got it. We're with you.
Sorry, that should be store repeat. And I'm going to move that down. Move down under card, sorry.
Under card. Okay, got it.
And store repeat, sorry, that's the name. Store repeat. Okay, here we go. So to help us to identify.
If you guys sorry, Mike, just as a side note, if you guys are wondering why you're seeing two cursors on here, it's because Mike and I are actually using CodePen's collaborative coding feature so that we can get in there at the same time. You are not seeing an illusion. So either of us, we'll do this fairly frequently where we can get in here and get into the same code at one time. So if it takes me a second to catch up with him, then that's what's happening.
Exactly, yeah. So let's give it a border so we can just know where each section begins and ends. So let's give it a 1 pixel solid border. We'll give it maybe like a nice gray or something like that.
Oh, I love it.
Well, actually not gray. Nice kind of a soft blue or something like that. So, but as you can see, there's a bit of inconsistency there. There's thickness is changing, and on the top or the bottom, there's been two borders applied, so it's not consistent.
So it looks like a double thick border in the middle here. Yeah.
So actually, what we're going to do is now just apply that on the top. So we'll just go border dash top, and that's only going to be put on the top. But then knowing we're a little empty at the bottom there, it's got
nothing under the pants.
Yeah, the pants has no shoes. So what we're going to do is now we're going to use a CSS pseudo selector, which is these handy little selectors that help us just target specific things in our CSS. So we don't have to give it a unique class, a unique ID. We can just go store repeat.
Oh, I see what you're saying, Mike.
Yeah.
So basically, by using our pseudo selector, we avoid peppering our HTML with unnecessary IDs and classes.
Exactly right. Yeah. So you can target specific things. So in this case, which we did last child, which is basically the last store repeat, the div that has store repeat on it, the last one. We'll give it a border bottom. So nice and handy there. Now we have.
There we go.
Borders opening and closing each section, and that's good. And now we're going to write our old friends display flex, and we will go flex direction.
You guys can probably guess.
Actually, we don't need to declare flex direction because we want them to be rows, so don't need it. So we'll go flex 1. Boom. Okay, now we'll share the vertical space or overall space together. But you're seeing the buttons are right at the top there, and leaving all this empty space right below them. So now we're gonna we're gonna use that handy little feature that we've already did in the nav, align item center.
Oh, I think you typo there, Mike. Align items.
Align center. I just got sensors on the lines. Yeah.
There we go.
There we go.
So now we have the immediate children of store repeat. So if we look inside of our HTML again, here's our container, store repeat. So the immediate child is this div right here. And because the div has no extra styling, it's going to be wrapped tightly around the button here. And as a result, this whole div is going to be center aligned because of our align items center. Hopefully that makes sense.
Yeah. So that's a bit of layout stuff going on. So now we got to go back into our HTML and change up the content again. As we were saying, it's all about evaluating, what the needs of a web page and what you're trying to convey with this information. So really, all we have is a item in a button that is the item's name in the price, and it's in a button, which makes you buy that button. So really, we're trying to condense a lot of stuff into one small area.
Yeah, true. Very true.
Not the best. So what we're going to do is we're going to grab our Angular expressions, item and amount, and I'm going to take them out of the button, and I'm going to put them up top in the div here. And I think I'm actually going to give them a h3 tag, a header tag here.
How we go click them?
I say we give the button a general action like purchase. So
you mean make it consistent?
Yeah.
Unacceptable, Mike.
Crazy.
You're a slave to convention, man.
And last thing we're missing now is the image. So what we've actually gone and done is I've added those images into Firebase.
Why don't I bring up Firebase?
Yeah.
Let's jump on into that.
So I'm using the same property that we've done for the data in Firebase. So you guys have set the amount in the JSON, you've given it an array, you've given it an amount, a cost amount, you've given it a description. I've done the same thing. So as you can see,
there we go. Got some URL in here now. So we still have the amount, we have our description, but just one more property added in there.
Yeah, that's exactly right. So
cool.
So now we can declare the URL in a Angular expression the same as we would.
Yep, because we're bringing in the whole inventory object. Any additional properties that we put into it, like this URL, just come along for the ride. So, and not only that, they're available in real time. As soon as you put it in there, it would show up inside this area in the expression that Mike is about to write here.
Yeah, so let's call our image. We'll do it with an HTML image tag, and we'll say source equals, and then put our Angular expression in. So we'll go, as we always did, item.url.
Bam!
We have images. Now they are all over the shop right now, but we have them in there. So what we're also going to do is we're going to give these image classes a class, and we'll say store image. And then back in our CSS, let's just give that store image. We'll go store.image. Give it a width. We'll declare the width of it, and that will ultimately declare the entirety of the image's size. And we can go 150 pixels if you want to keep it consistent. You could even go 15%, and then they would actually be a bit more responsive, or 15% is a bit low, 25%, 35%. And then
this is the kind of thing where a hard pixel value isn't a terrible option.
No, exactly.
Because generally on a phone, for instance, you're going to have at least 300 pixels to work with for a little image like this. So as long as you're not, making it too large, that you'll start having things bust out of their box or have the image, be too crowded inside of the available area, then hard pixel value can work and probably won't give you a hard time. I say probably. Who knows what screen sizes we wind up working with, but you're fairly safe for something like this, or something like an icon is a fairly safe thing. Generally, 54 pixels is the minimum that you're going to want to go with if it's an item that you're going to tap, simply because that's Google's recommendations for minimum area that is easy to tap in on a touchscreen device.
Exactly, yeah.
That's looking good.
Yeah.
I'm already more inspired to buy pants.
All right, so.
Can't help noticing we're not selling mustaches anymore, Mike.
Yeah, no, all those nonsensical
crossbows.
things, they're gone. It's becoming a real soccer store now.
Something you might actually show a client.
Yeah, exactly, yeah. Yeah, I try to treat it like a real application, so.
Yeah, it's a fun exercise, but it can also be a pretty nice little portfolio piece.
Definitely, guys. If you clean this up and you make it legit, this is a great portfolio piece because it showcases like great Angular knowledge and.
Yep. I think in a future lesson we were talking about the possibility of maybe introduce a little bit of animation in here, some tasteful animation into here.
So so I think definitely we've got more content in there. We've been laying it out, and next step now will be to actually apply a little bit more styling and clean it up just a little bit more. So we're going to get into that in just a moment.
Cool. Okay, guys, we're back. Mike, you noticed a little thing that we've got to refactor here.
So we've still got more work to do a little bit on the store alignment here, because as you can see, everything is stacking on top of each other, opposed to if you go to the finished example, next to each other, right?
Yeah, so we want this type of arrangement.
Yeah. So let's go back in, and what we noticed it was in the end, as we've been rattling on about direct children of the Flex property, and we're not just saying it for the sake of it, it stumped us. Is if we take a look here, everything is in one div.
Right.
So the image, the description in the button.
These guys are basically one child.
Yeah, the Flexbox is treating it as one thing. So it's not it can't do anything with the three of them.
Right.
So even though sometimes it's nice to group up stuff in a div, in this case it's not to our benefit. So we're actually going to delete this empty div here, which was just there before. And then you'll see. There
you go, right?
It's now horizontal.
Because they're each now a child.
Yeah, they're each a child of the store repeat, which has the Flex property on it. So. But now you'll notice it's looking pretty squished in there, and they're all, jamming up next to each other. If only there was an easy way to space them out. I think we gotta do float right, padding.
Throw some margins in
pixels. I think
position relative.
Yeah, position relative, of course. Yeah. Inside a absolute container. No. Go back.
And then our brains melt.
Yeah. Let's go back into our store repeat class in the CSS.
CSS.
Just a little bit up
repeat.
there.
Up. Yep. Here we go.
And slightly different to align items is justify content. Now in this case they are doing this they're being applied to the same items, but they are actually doing different things. So the alignment is.
Yeah, if you guys remember that example we looked in right back at the start of the lesson, we were using a justify content in that case. So when your flex direction is set to row, justified content is going to be applied horizontally. Spacing will be applied in between your objects horizontally.
Yeah. So alignment is just about, actually just aligning it to certain places, and then justifying is filling that empty space in between various put that in there. Is justifying the space in between the various amounts. So they're all going to be aligned, top to bottom. But then, if you have three of them, how much space is in between the three of them? If you have four of them, how much space? That's where justify content comes in. And we'll experiment. So if we actually go flex end, that sticks it on the other side.
Yeah.
Flex beginning would do, flex start, would do it, that way. We could go, now, really handy ones, we could go space between. Boom, that's what we want.
Yeah.
You could even go space around, which equal space on both sides, but we want space between, that way.
Get that nice left hand and right hand alignment.
Exactly,
yeah. The other one is more useful if you're doing something like a grid, right? Because it puts it puts half the amount of space on the left and half amount on the right. You can sit them beside each other and make a nice grid using a little trick like that. But this is perfect, the space between here.
Yeah, so.
Now if I test the responsive here, as I want to do. See what's happening there, guys? So the space is reducing in there. It automatically calculates it, and it does its darndest to keep these guys all in alignment here. See that? So it's getting very close, very close, very close.
Obviously now there's not enough space to share.
Yeah.
And we would have to do something else, like a media query, to say when it's this small, align it a different way. And we can get into that at a later point.
It's almost impossible, though, for it to bust out of its box, you know?
Yeah.
It does a really nice job of making that not happen.
So that's actually we've got the layout happening for our store. Let's style it up a little bit more. Starting with those ugly looking buttons, looking pretty plain to me.
Yeah, default button. They look a little better on your Mac, Mike.
They do actually, yeah. But
we're not counting on the browser Chrome for this.
Yeah, exactly, yeah. We're going to follow our Google overlords once again, and we're going to take some real nods from their material design, because they have a lot of ways to do buttons. Suggest looking that up, but we're going to do a classic raised button, and we're going to apply that. We're going to write that by hand with CSS. So
sounds good.
Underneath store image, we're going to just grab that button HTML element. We're going to apply our styles directly to that. So first things first is we're going to give it a background color, and we're not going to give it any background color. We're going to give it the exact same one as that nav, that nice blue that we picked out earlier. We're going to do the same thing, and just to make it more visible, let's get rid of the border, because by default it actually had a border on it.
Right.
Let's do that. So now it's the same. So you can see the nav and the buttons are both jumping out. They both have a little bit of consistency now, but they're also the primary elements of our app. And let's go take a look at how we pick these colors and why we're doing that. And that's over here on the material guidelines for color. If you want to scroll up just a tad bit as well, look at all these great color palettes that they've picked out for us. Now, obviously, when it comes to this, like, you don't have to use these colors, but the principles definitely apply, and these are some really nice colors in there. So we've picked their blue, and right off the bat, we've picked their 500. Here? Yeah, because
nice.
The 500 is supposed to be your primary color, so it's really a nice, vivid color, and that's going to be your primary color in your design for your web app, and that's going to be the things that you really want to highlight and give emphasis to, and really kind of splash some color around. You don't want to overuse it, but you certainly don't want to underuse it. So, and then what you're kind of supposed to do is then pick a couple more hues in the palette. So take your 500 and then pick a couple more, either darker or lower, and those are kind of your accent colors, complementary colors. And then scroll back down now. So that's picking a color scheme.
Look at all these colors.
Really nice ones, guys.
Nice.
Really nice ones. And so you pick primary, a couple variations of the hues, and then you can often pick an accent color, which you would use to really stand out. So
right.
There is some theory to this.
Yeah. So you don't want to go nuts with your variations of the primary color.
Yeah.
The idea is that you want to keep it pretty subtle, and then go with a very vivid contrast here. And you can see in the context over here, that contrast is quite often used to symbolize a very actionable item here. So right here, this little round button that they call the floating action button or the fab button, it really, really stands out here because of that contrast.
You're going to click that,
Yeah, it's very good in terms of readability as well for people who suffer from some level of color blindness. Usually people don't realize that almost everyone has some degree of color blindness, especially men have higher incidence of color blindness than women do. So the guidelines are not just about aesthetics, they're also about usability.
Exactly, and there is a thing called luminosity contrast ratio, which you guys can Google and put, where you input two different hues, hex codes, and it would tell you if it's passed the grade. And we often have to do this in commercial work and stuff, especially when accessibility is an important thing. And you really want to make sure you get that AAA rating, but at the bare minimum, the AA rating.
Yeah.
And since we're over here in material design, Tim, do you want to go into components here?
Sure.
And go buttons. We're going to let's show these guys what we're actually going to be building with our CSS.
Alrighty.
is we're going to be building the middle one there.
This raised
button?
button?
Just a classic raised button. And we're going to write that with CSS. And as you can see, that looks a lot nicer than the old default one. So
Indeed.
Let's jump back in and do it.
All right.
So we're on our way, as you see. We got a solid color.
Yeah.
We got rid of the border. And, we're just declaring this all in our CSS. And let's have the empty space around here. So let's give it a little bit of padding. How much padding should we give it? Let's give it a 5 on the top and the bottom, and a 10 on either side. But you guys can experiment a little bit with that, and see what you guys think. I think let's increase the font size a little bit. It's a little bit difficult to read, so let's say 14 pixels. Bit bigger. So let's increase the weight. So we brought in those different weights from Google Fonts. Let's use the 500 this time. That's made it a little bit bolder, a little bit more easy to read. And but speaking of, we were talking about contrast ratios. The black and the blue is a little tricky. So let's give it a white. And easier to read.
And that's a good use of a pure white.
Yeah, exactly, yeah. And, we've spoken at length about box shadows and the importance of establishing hierarchy. A button should sit on top. It should have a higher visual hierarchy because it is a more important element. So we've got to give it a shadow. We've got to raise it up. So now it sits slightly on top of the cards.
So that's looking very clickable.
Yeah, you want to click it. But the last thing that's stopping you from clicking it is usually when you hover over a button, your cursor changes.
Yes.
But right now it's the same thing.
Right.
But we can declare that in CSS with the cursor property, and then we give it the pointer value. Now it turns into the little hands.
I'm pointing. Yeah, nice.
Yeah. So that's now we've got nice buttons looking.
It even looks pretty good up in the.
It does, but I would say it's not looking the best.
Yeah, you want to do something with that?
I do want to do something with it. So let's target just that one.
Okay.
And, again, using kind of CSS's great ways of selecting things, we can say nav button, which is basically saying any buttons in the nav apply these styles. And let's just swap it around. So the color will be white, background color, sorry. And then the color itself, so the color of the content, will be that blue.
That should still pick up my cursor option. Yep.
Yeah, because the button class, button properties that we've written apply to all the buttons on the page, but then we've said, for the nav, just switch these two properties up.
Yeah.
So.
The cascading part of style sheets.
Exactly, yeah. Cascading style sheets. And that's looking a lot more material design-esque and modern and chic. But I'll tell you what's not looking modern and chic are those input fields.
Yeah, I was thinking the same. I thought you were going to call me out there, Mike.
Oh, never.
I realize I let myself go a little bit. But,
but now you get to say it on
oh, thank God, it's the input fields.
A few, yeah.
So what shall we do with those bad boys?
Yeah, so let's target input fields. So let's go just input. And that's the HTML element's name. And let's just apply some CSS properties to it, starting with background color. In material design, they look quite different. And starting with, they actually don't have a background. So they are transparent. Once I figure out how to spell it. Yeah, there we go. There's still some borders on there. Let's get rid of it. For the time being, at least. And yeah, actually, the best way we want to do it is border 0. But then we do want it to have a bottom border.
Yeah, they have this style where it's basically just an underline.
It's just an underline, real minimal, but it lets you know, like, input some text here.
Yeah.
And gray is not gray is pretty dark though. We'll go white, but you might want to experiment with it. And we'll just give it a font size. Font size 16 pixels.
That's better.
Yeah.
Lines up a bit nicer with the login button too.
Yeah, it does, exactly, yeah. And yeah, that's... Yeah, although actually, so we don't want to give it the white border bottom.
Yeah, we've kind of lost it down in the payment area there.
Yeah.
So would you target that one separately, or just make a call to change them all?
Yeah, so yeah, either way, guys, that's the great thing about web design, is there's a million different ways to do things. But in this case, let's just take it back to that gray maybe. And
yeah, it's a little better for the search purchases as well.
So that's just looking a little bit slicker and overall, and actually, very last thing we'll do is the media query. Now we'll just do a real simple version of it.
Yes, we haven't covered that yet.
Yeah, and
it's a good call.
So I'm going to grab it.
So a media query, guys, is going to allow you to set something called a breakpoint. So for the most part, like the way Mike has done it here, makes total sense, right? Because it's 100% responsive right now. And for the most part, you want to achieve everything you want to do purely responsively.
Yeah,
however, at some point, you're probably going to want to set one of these breakpoints, which allows you to set a little tolerance rule here.
Yeah.
So we're going to be able to say, if the screen gets to a certain size, here's a special rule that I want to kick in. So this is purely for aesthetics. This is your own personal preference how you set these, but they are very common. They're very, very useful. So I'm glad Mike gets a chance to show you how to use one inside this design.
Yeah. So you don't want to overuse them, but they are just handy just for those extreme circumstances where your responsive design just needs a little bit of help. So we stick our @imports at the very top of our style sheet, but we stick our @media at the very bottom of our style sheet. Because really we're writing in a sense, we're writing a new style sheet now for this web page when it's at this height. So at the very bottom, let's go @media, we're going to say everything. If the page has a max width of, in this case, we'll just say 700. There are certain rules. 960 is usually the rule for mobile.
Yep. There's again some recommendations on the material design side if you want to use those.
There is, yeah.
Yeah.
But we'll just do that in this scenario, and then we basically write that as one big CSS. We have to put our curly braces, and we put one big one. And then we put specific things in there. So now how the first thing we did was create that div called wrapper, which is the row for both two sections. We're going to target that with our CSS to make it say, when it's 700 pixels, you guys are sharing this much room because you're a row.
You saw when I moved it very, very tight there. It didn't break, but it's getting pretty nasty looking, right?
Yeah. So we'll say, at 700 pixels, I no longer want you to be a row. You're going to be a column. And they're going to go in there.
Good trick. So stacking, basically.
Yeah.
All right, cool. Let's do it.
Let's write it. So we go wrapper, curly braces, we'll just say flex, direction, column. And now, Tim, if you want to give it the old slide along.
I do. So I'm going to grab this and start bringing it in here.
We're still doing good.
Doing good. We're okay. Boom, stacked.
So we almost.
Yeah.
Tim, if you want to just pull it a little bit back until it breaks. Look how close that is, though. So I'm thinking 700 pixels probably wasn't the right number for us.
Still a bit tight, yeah.
Let's go 800 pixels.
Yeah, there we go. So let's see. So we're going to break right about there.
So even that's not good. I'm going to go 900 pixels.
Maybe Google was right with that 960.
Yeah. I'm telling you guys, Google's always right. That technically works for us, but 960 does seem to be a pretty magic number. So
yeah, it's because they have all the data.
Yeah, so they steal it from us by
That's
reading our
right.
information every day.
With their darn highly usable free products.
Yeah. How dare they? And let's go back, Tim. Pull it back over so it stacks again.
Okay.
And let's go take a look at the store. Scroll down. It looks okay, but another way we could do it is if you stay like that. I'm going to now say store repeat. So when the store is being stuck like this.
Mm-hmm.
Let's tell that to have a flex direction column.
Okay. Oh, yeah, nice. Yeah. Good trick for mobile.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So now if I get a little smaller here, probably about that size is what we'd be looking at on a typical device. And, that's going to be a lot easier to tap on and make your purchase with.
Yeah, and that's how information is laid out on mobile, so it only makes sense to go vertical all around and keep it consistent like that. So if you just want to take a look in the CSS on the media, okay, all I did was just say, give it a little bit of padding on the top there, but then just say flex direction.
Beautiful.
Yeah. So that's basically all we're going to show you today, guys. If we just want to take a look at the final product that I've worked on, I spent a fair bit of time on it after this. And you can see I've applied some colors. So I've taken a darker hue, and I've taken a really dark hue for the background. And I've done a little bit. I've added some stuff like enter a payment. I've written some text. So, but then look, I still have really dark black text on the blue box there. That's hard to read, so I could improve that. So why don't you guys, we've gotten it to the point that we have. It's looking pretty slick. You guys should be pretty stoked about this. You've got a great Angular app. You've got some nice slick styles. Angular is a Google library, so material design is Google's design guidelines. So you guys,
this is all free.
Yeah, this is all free.
This doesn't cost you a penny. I mean, that's a point I wanted to bring out. So Mike has been doing this stuff. Mike was in the program about a year and a half ago, and he's been out since then, and doing commercial work as well. But even before the commercial work, Mike was frequently experimenting and trying things and seeing how it looked and putting it in front of people. That's really what you need to do, basically. So the idea here is, don't just repeat what Mike has done. Use that as your base, but make it your own. Make something yourself. Use your creativity. Look to the guidelines for inspiration, but where you want, tweak it a little bit. You can do that. Why not do it? So hopefully you have some fun with that, and hopefully the functionality that we've added through Angular gives you that little extra edge, because you're actually, creating something that sort of kind of works already here. I mean, if we were to keep going on this, we could actually hook up a real e-commerce system in here. There's libraries like Stripe that we can use. There's a whole ecosystem around Angular where people have made custom directives that you can grab and use. You could throw in maps and things like that with a lot of ease. But no matter what you do, you're still going to need these basics of styling.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. If it doesn't look good, nobody's going to pay attention to it these days. So can't emphasize that enough. And besides, it's fun. Get to play with some colors. If you were to change up this color scheme, Mike, you would change the whole feel of the store here.
Yeah. So we'd love to see what you guys can come up with, and we're going to be reviewing them. And if you have, we're going to take a look. If you guys have some great designs out there, definitely, I want to take a look at it. So, give it a go, guys, and then maybe we'll take a look at some, and we'll give you some notes. And
any questions? Fire it on Basecamp. Happy to take a look at it.